I doubt it.
Something was on our
No,
heels.
crab apples, no. Medlar. This is what I looked it up in the dictionary. It's called Medlar, in German language Mispel.
It must be a sturgeon.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, any questions you can interrupt any time. I know I talk, change to talk. You can stop me anytime. He's a man. But you can buy some here and maybe bring it. Do you have an I know it's confusing because we have two churches, but the main parish church is the other one. Oh, this church is Trappists are not supposed to talk too much. Your attention first when you entered this church?
The pretty whiteness of it, the ceiling.
Ceiling.
Whiteness.
Smell.
Somebody immediately pointed in this direction. Skeletons. Yeah. The answer is different for everybody. Yeah? It's a little bit overwhelming. Would you ever expect a treasure like this in a little remote village in the middle of nowhere?
No.
And that's why I said that's my wow moment, when you come in behind me and I hear you. I love this church myself. I mean, we have so many churches in Austria, you know, but I think that's a very special one. And what you see here, this is what we call Rococo. Have you ever heard that word?
Oh, yeah.
That was the architectural fashion after Baroque. The majority of churches in Austria are Baroque style. How can you tell the difference? If you know it, it's easy. Baroque has brighter colors and much more gold. Here, just a little bit of gold, yeah? And instead of gold, in Rococo churches, they are using that plaster decoration, the white stucco. All the figures, all the statues are made out of that plaster, yeah? And the colors are pastel colors. If you look at the ceiling, that's pastel colors, yeah? This is how you can depict between Baroque and Rococo, yeah? But this church is a very young church. Let me start with the history of the monastery. It all started in the year 1293, 13th century. Did I tell you who wanted a monastery here? The Bishop of Passau. He needed a place to stay overnight. That was the main reason. And as I said, it doesn't hurt if you have Franks playing for you. But in the beginning, it was the Cistercians. The Trappists were not existing yet. So the Cistercian monks were the first community living here. And everything was fine until those new ideas came to this region, to Austria. Mr. Martin Luther had announced his thesis, and his ideas came to our area. And all of a sudden the monks probably, I'm just putting the words in their mouth, they probably said, we can get married now. That's nice. Off they went. And immediately the monastery was empty. And in the 17th, 16th century, the majority of the Austrians were Protestant. And you can imagine who did not like that development. Our former royals, the Habsburgs. You heard about them, right? So they actually started what we nowadays know as counter-reformation. They virtually made sure that people were made Catholic again. Have you ever heard that sentence?
No.
It reminds me so much of my grandmother. I have to tell you a personal story. My grandmother was born 1895. So she passed away a long time ago. But of course, when I was a little kid, she took care of me once a week when I was 5, 6 years old. And once a week my grandmother was with me. And very rarely, but sometimes it happened, that little Sylvia was not behaving. You know what my granny would tell me? She came up to me like this. She said, Sylvia, if you don't behave right now, I'm going to make you Catholic. But whenever my granny said that sentence, I knew exactly, now she's serious. Now I really have to be careful. Huh? So, to make somebody Catholic was not a good thing. A lot of people left the country, the empire. A lot of people left for Germany, Protestants, even to the United States. So, the Habsburgs did not like that development, so they made sure that the monks came back here. So the Cistercian monks were brought back to Engelhartszell, and then something terrible happened. A big fire destroyed the whole monastery. And after that big fire, the monks had to decide, are we going to rebuild everything, or are we looking for a different place where we can live? Thank God the monks decided to rebuild everything. And now you know why we have such a young church, 1763, you saw the date outside. Yeah, when they were done with reconstruction, something terrible happened again. A new emperor, Joseph II, suddenly decided we don't need so many monasteries. They only cost money. So he dissolved this monastery here. He gave away the library, he took the silver treasure, he gave away the organ, and this place was deserted. I can give you some more dates here, but you don't have to remember any of the dates. You know that, right? No test yet. 1791, this monastery was dissolved, and then it took until 1925. And that was the year when the Trappists came to Engelhartszell. Where did they come from? 50 Trappist monks came from Alsace, France. Alsace, before the First World War, was German. After the First World War, it became French. So those monks, all of a sudden, were what we would call today refugees. They had to leave the country. They had to look for a place, and they found an empty monastery here, totally run down, so it didn't cost a lot. They bought it and started a monastic life again, 1925. So that's the beginning of the Trappist monastery here. And then something terrible, very terrible happened. 1938, I'm starting with 1938, that's when all the trouble started in Austria. Adolf Hitler marched into Austria, annexed Austria, announced the Anschluss, and 1 year later, more or less, the Second World War had started. And Hitler told the monks, under quotation marks, either you fight for me in the army or you are sent to Dachau. Everybody knows Dachau, right? First concentration camp built in Germany. So after the Second World War, how many monks survived? 25. Approximately 25 came back, and now we're down to 4 plus 2 gentlemen. Now you know why we give tours here. We are recruiting. The beer is fabulous, I promise. The schnapps is good too. So that's a little bit the history of the monastery. Let's talk about the interesting parts here in the church. What are those skeletons, ladies and gentlemen? About 250 years ago, this church was decorated, so that's still original. And the official version of the skeletons is these are relics from the catacombs in Rome. I agree. Are you sure? No, we are not. We cannot prove it. The skeletons are real human skeletons. That's the only thing we can prove. But definitely, DNA research was not invented 250 years ago. But you know what? It did not matter for the people. 250 years ago, 90% of the population was peasants. Peasants did not know how to write or read. Peasants had a very hard life. They were not free. They had to work the whole life. They died at the age between 30 and 40 because their bodies were worn out. The hygienic situation was totally different. Their babies died before they even were little children. So life on earth for them was hell, to be honest. Yeah? And those skeletons are telling them a story. Listen, when you come back into the Roman Catholic churches, time of Counter-Reformation was still going on. And they were more or less telling them, if you come into our churches again, you will end up in heaven, and this is paradise. This is what paradise will be for you. You will be dressed in silver and gold, in silk. You are decorated with diamonds. Very naive, I do agree, but 250 years ago, that story was selling. And that's why Counter-Reformation was really successful in Austria. And that's the reason why nowadays about 65% of the Austrians would tell you, I'm a member of the Roman Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. So that's a little excursion. But there are many more stories told in this church except the skeletons. Every side altar tells you a different story. We talked about the main altar already, Mary's Assumption. Every statue is a different saint. You can see the names. Yeah? Every statue has a legend, another story that is told. A fresco tells you a different story. Yeah? So you are busy with stories, with storytelling in here. And this is how it really worked. Yeah?
How old is this fresco?
A little bit older. No, I tell you the story. The original fresco was done by the same artist that did this one 260 years ago. Alto Monte was his name, don't worry about the names. This one was done in 1954 by a local artist. How did that happen? The original fresco was damaged, over the years where nobody was here, nobody took care, and it had huge cracks and it was impossible to renovate it. So Abbot Benno was his name. In the 50s, he had to make a big decision. He had to decide whether to have a white ceiling or to have a local artist redo the fresco in his own way. Yeah? So the local artist redid this fresco in 4 years. It took him 4 years. But this artist was very clever. He was using the same colors. If you compare the colors from the old one and the new one, they're almost the same. And he's even telling us the same story that was there before. He's telling us the story of the Virgin Mary again. If you look up, you see the sun. The sun is the center of the universe, at least what we think is. And within the sun is the Virgin Mary. And the Virgin Mary is surrounded by 9 choirs of angels. And all these angel choirs are tuned into the same Hallelujah to praise the Virgin Mary. That's the story that is told. Ladies and gentlemen, please put yourself into the shoes of Abbot Benno, 1954, in a little remote village like Engelhartszell, in a Roman Catholic church. He had a hard time. Everybody was complaining, what a big scandal, how could you do something ugly in this Roman Catholic church? We hate it, we don't like it. He had a very hard time. Today, ladies and gentlemen, more than 50 years later, art students are doing pilgrimages to Engelhartszell to see the masterpiece of this very artist. Fritz Fröhlich, he was professor at the Art University in Linz. He passed away a long time ago. Yeah? But this is today his masterpiece.
No, you said
In a different church. And this organ is from 1996. And that was a donation by the village people. Somebody asked me before, so they collected money because they said a church without an organ, that's impossible. So that was financed by the village people.
Can we play it?
Well, they have a lot of clubs here, like orchestra, singing club.
That was a joke.
Firefighters.
The village people,
The village.
YMCA.
YMCA.
That's my generation.
The government taxes and
No, not
gives
the
the money to
government.
the church?
Not the government. The church.
The church tax.
Yeah, just the church. And normally it's 0.2% of your annual income. But as I say, it's negotiable. To be honest, the church would make much more money if it would be voluntary donations like you have it in the States.
Yeah.
With that fixed, everybody's like, I have to pay that,
So what about the private?
Yes, you'll be heading up to the viewpoint of Maria Hilf Monastery to look down. So yeah, you got to walk on your hands, but it'll be great. It'll be a lovely tour. So there are a few points of interest. Now, St. Stephen's Cathedral. This is, I would say, a fairly old photo of St. Stephen's Cathedral. It's been cleaned up and spruced up a lot since then. It's white, it's a beautiful in the distance from where we dock, walk over the bridge, and the entrance is pretty visible right next to the main bridge in Passau. If you're taking, so that is how much the buildings were engulfed by water not long ago, 2013, and obviously many years before that as well. So that is still a thing. If you've done the historical part in the morning and you're looking for something just a little cute to do in the afternoon, then we have a Dashan Museum just round the corner from the cathedral, and there's cobblestones as well. So if you weren't on that leisurely tour today and you think maybe I might have a little bit of an issue walking at a regular pace up and down hills or steps, then sign yourself up to the leisurely tour. Betty,
Susan! Susan!
Oh, my loving, darling, and friend. Close your eyes and I kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Remember, I've always been true. And while I'm away, I'll run home every day and send all my loving to you. Oh, can buy me more. Buy you a diamond ring, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. I get you anything, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. Cause I don't care too much for money, money can't buy me love. Give you all I got to give you, say you love me too. Might know how a lot they'll keep, but what I got I give to you. I don't care too